So, when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, I like to talk about the negative takeaways from any given match and then follow it up with the positives. So, to start off with the negatives, I thought there were three major weaknesses for the U.S. in this game. One was that I really struggled in the first half to maintain possession, get a couple of, some coherent, consistent passing going. Um, Almost every play or any type of rhythm that we tried to create was disrupted after just, two or three passes in the midfield. So possession was a big issue. Another I thought was our crosses into the Brazilian half of the field were terrible. Every cross was either cleared out by the goalkeeper Allison or by the back line that Brazil fielded tonight. So, our cross accuracy was lacking, to say the least. And the third major weakness is I don't think we really had an accounting for Douglas Costa's speed on the wings. We saw in the build-up leading to Brazil's first goal when Douglas Costa basically nutmegged a couple of our players, ran down, just zoomed down, the right-hand side where he made that cross into the box that Firmino tucked home. We were also guilty, I think, of ball watching on that play as well. There was not really any man that was marking Firmino when he was making his run into the box. Um, and then he got onto the end of that wonderful pass from Douglas Costa, and he fired home in the 13th minute. But Douglas Costa really was the nightmare for the U.S. men's national team tonight. I don't think, like I said, I don't think we had an answer for his pace on the ball. So those are the three main weaknesses I thought we had tonight. One thing that moving on to the positives at least. We actually absorbed pressure quite well, and when Brazil pressed us in the middle of the pitch, we did a good job of retaining possession in the second half. It was a little bit better. Hence, I guess that's the main contributor to why we didn't concede in the second half. Which, if you're a team like the United States and you go 45 plus minutes without conceding against one of the best teams in the world in Brazil, I think that's a positive in and of itself. Usually, when we play Brazil, the U.S. tends to get blown out. I know that the last two times that we played Brazil in friendlies were in 2015 and 2012, and both score lines were identical. They were both 4-1 losses, and that's kind of around the ballpark of what I expected to get tonight. To lose by multiple goals, maybe at least a 3-goal margin. They put 4, maybe even 5 past us, but that didn't happen. And I know that the starting lineup that we had, there's only 2 or 3 players that were above the age of 23. I think the average age of the starting 11 that we used tonight was 20, 21 years old. And it was good to see more of Timmy Weah when he came on. But for the most part, for a team that is trying to rebuild itself and is essentially wiping out entirely the old guard, I thought we looked relatively much more composed than I really would have expected us to look like tonight. And this was a strong Brazilian lineup. This wasn't like a B team that Tite fielded. You say for 1 or 2 players, this is essentially close to a starting 11 that Brazil had in the World Cup. You had Neymar, Felipe Coutinho, you had Alisson in goal, you had I believe Fabinho was on there as well. So only really a couple of changes. Only some notable absences were Marcelo, I think Casemiro as well. But this was essentially what you could consider an A- in Brazilian team. A-, I would say. And we actually had a couple of decent opportunities towards the end of the first half. I thought that another positive that we had was when we finally managed to get a couple of good string of passes in together, we forced Felipe Luis down on the left hand side of the Brazilian box to making a couple of defensive errors that allowed us to win back possession. And then we had a couple of opportunities on 3 consecutive corner kicks where ultimately, I believe on the second corner, Weston McKennie had a couple of nice 1-2 touches, and he forced Alisson into making a couple of critical saves. So we came reasonably close to finding an equalizer before Will Trapp, clipped Fabinho's heel in the box, and it led to Neymar's penalty. Now, was it a penalty? At first glance, it looked a little bit soft, but if you look at it from a different angle, Will Trapp does clip him. I don't think he steps on him. That's an over-exaggeration. But there's contact. Now, the question of whether or not he goes to ground too easily is a little bit irrelevant because there's contact, and I can see why some referees would call it a penalty. So, I'm not gonna complain. I'm not gonna complain. Overall, to be honest, I am bizarrely, strangely, a little bit. I'm satisfied with that performance because, when we usually come up against Brazil, things don't really end very pretty for us, and we were able to hold them at bay, and they were continuing to press us forward in the second half. They didn't really take their foot off the gas until the last few moments of the game itself. And usually when we play Brazil, they find the back of the net quite a few times. So, all in all, for a team whose average age it was younger than me, I know I don't look young because I'm balding, but I'm 25. These kids are fucking 21, 20, 19. Like I said, only a couple players that were older, the age of 23. I mean, it's a decent performance. It's decent. There's a few things I would have liked to have been different. One could argue that Weston McKennie took a little bit too long to get a shot on target, but he shot at a tight angle anyway, so there's a good chance that if he didn't try to get closer to the right-hand post, that he wouldn't have had an effort on target. But forcing Alisson into making those saves, that's a positive. I think it's a positive. So that's my reaction. Honestly, better than the last 2 times we played Brazil, and that's really saying something because we didn't have a Michael Bradley, we didn't have a Clint Dempsey or a Landon Donovan here. It's a new age, it's a new era, and with a really young squad against the team that I feel should have won the World Cup in Brazil, there's potential. The potential is there. We had those little flashes of brilliant individual moments, but it's gonna take a while to cultivate it. But that's my reaction.